Lost luggage horror stories are everywhere lately, but what if it happens to you? In this episode, we are breaking down smart packing tips and exactly what to do if your bags don't show up. Don't get caught unprepared.
Anna, I know you referenced that you had some upcoming travel in our last episode. What do you have going on?
We are leaving next weekend to go to San Francisco. We're going to stay there for a couple days before we get on a cruise that actually departs out of San Francisco and goes to Alaska. We have never done Alaska out of California, so I'm super excited about that. I'm also super open to suggestions about San Francisco because it kind of snuck up on us. And other than a dining reservation at the Stinking Rose restaurant, we've nothing planned. So if you have something that you've done recently in San Francisco and you're like, no, this is a must do, leave me a comment because I might be doing it.
Great. That'll be a lot of fun. Do you stop in Canada on that too?
We do. And I think the big appeal to me of doing this trip is I love Alaska, but I just love cruising in general. And it takes longer to get to Alaska from San Francisco.
Yeah,
I don't know if everybody else is not as familiar with geography as I was not that familiar. I mean, I know California is a little lower down, but in my head, it was like, this is awesome. This is like a 13-day trip to Alaska and I'm going to love this. But like our first 2 days are days at sea because, we're leaving from California. But I've also never really done that kind of a cruise. So I'm really looking forward to cruising out of California and up the West Coast a little bit.
It'll be fun. And we'll definitely look forward to talking about that when you're back.
Yeah, I love talking about Alaska.
So our topic today is luggage disasters. We do not want this to happen to you.
But we've had it happen.
We've had it happen. We've seen it happen. And, you're planning your vacation, right? You're planning where you're going to stay and what you're going to see. You're making your dining reservations. But, we also recommend, in addition to, planning out what you're packing, to really think thoughtfully and strategically about how you pack because this can be a disaster in your vacation if it happens. And so we are going to talk all about that. And we do have some information from the transportation department about like what the rules are. So we're going to put that in our show notes because this can change obviously, but you just kind of want to be aware of what your what you can be offered if this does happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about the occasions where we have personally lost luggage. And I know you've got a couple stories.
I
I have a couple stories, but let me hear it.
All right. So I have so many stories, but let me give you some different categories of stories. So number one, this is one that people don't think can happen, but I'm going to tell you it's happened to me twice. I checked a bag, nice big bag, or I didn't check a bag, but I had a carry-on. Boarding towards the end of the flight, carry-on doesn't make it or it can't go in the overheads because they're full. I get it tagged, get to the carousel, no bag. So this is, and when we talk disaster, it's not hyperbole when it's your carry-on bag because this is the bag that you think is going to make it on the plane, right?
I know that sets up a false sense of security because you're thinking, I literally just handed it to the flight attendant who's just putting it right in a closet. It's going to be right there.
So because of this, if you follow my blog or you listen to the podcast regularly, you will hear me say that things need to go in your personal item. This is why, right? So your personal item needs to have your medications, your chargers, those things, your travel documents. Do not put a passport in that bag that goes in the overhead. And, you might think like, okay, well, but I have a good boarding number. But, if you happen to be late, if you're delayed, all these things, right? Like if you have a connection. Okay. So that was the first one. It did happen on my way home. So I will point that out. Both times it happened on my way home.
If it has to happen at all, that's the best time for it to happen because at least you know you've got clean underwear in a drawer somewhere.
Right, right. Um, Another one, I was flying to Portugal. My bags made it all the way to Charles de Gaulle. They did not make it from Charles de Gaulle um, to the Porto airport in Portugal. This was our first big trip after the pandemic. So there were like crazy lines. We had just flown overnight. We were exhausted. We had headaches, severely undercaffeinated, and crazy line, you know, issues with, language barrier. Um, I was told I would get a sheet that explained everything to us. The sheet was in Portuguese.
No.
Which, you kind of, obviously, if Portugal, you should speak Portuguese, but you'd think like something like that, they'd have like multiple languages that they had this sheet. Like, we were advised to come back to the airport to get our luggage, which we did. You would not believe the rooms of luggage that they brought us through.
Oh no.
And just keep in mind, right? So we've left the airport. We don't have a boarding pass for a flight. So we had to go through this like back way and get escorted by security to go into this room. So anyway, another one that I will mention is we were going on a cruise. We flew on Christmas Day, but we did fly the day before. Our flight was delayed probably like 4 hours. We got on the flight. We did not get to Orlando till probably 1 a.m. And our bags weren't there. And we were getting a cruise the next day. So luckily, we did have baggage there who did, and we'll talk about this, but I did have an AirTag because they felt like the bag might be in the next flight, which was midair. I knew that the bag was not mid-flight. I knew the bag was sitting at Logan Airport. It did come the next morning. We did pick it up at the airport on the carousel because we knew what flight it would be on. We got on the flight with no issues. And then the last one I'm going to point out is my daughter was flying back to college. She had a layover, and her first flight, her bag made it on the flight. It had already been loaded when they were delayed. And in that flight being delayed, they realized that she was not going to make her connection. So they rerouted her, but they told her they couldn't take the bag off.
No.
So we sat there and watched the AirTag. That plane was so delayed and her new flight was so late that she was like feet from it and they wouldn't take it off, which was so frustrating. But again, she was going back to school, so she had plenty of things at school to get that bag the next day. So that was good. Now, why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah, I've been super, super lucky, and I've only ever lost luggage when I have not at home. I've lost it a couple times coming home, but going out, I've only lost it twice. Once going to Vegas, which wasn't fun because I was wearing winter clothes and, it was 130 degrees. But the other really panicky time was just with you 2 weeks ago. My bag didn't show up on the cruise ship, and we had like a formal night event to go to. And thank goodness in the bag that was delivered, I did have my dress so that I could change, but I had no hair products, no makeup, no anything. And it was very nerve wracking to begin with. But the thing that made it worse, because my bag did eventually show up, was the next day when they delivered the flyer outlining that there were still bags missing and asking, if this was delivered to your room. It made me very nervous to think, for these poor people, you really, at that point, they're basically telling you, we don't know where your bag is. It wasn't left on the pier when you got on because we checked. It's not there. It's got to be somewhere on the ship and we don't know where it is. And that is so stressful to me. So my stuff did eventually show up. I didn't have everything I needed to go to the formal event because I would have loved to freshen up makeup and stuff like that. So it is so stressful.
Yeah. And just to note about your specific example, when we did get the bag, the cruise tag had been ripped off. So that's why it had to be retagged. And this is a good lesson that we'll reference later, but having your name on the bag was ultimately what got you that bag quicker.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about what you could do to be more prepared, because you can't anticipate this happening, but you should be ready for it to happen.
Yeah. So, and I know we've talked about this in other episodes, but, carry on only continues to be the best, even though, like I said, I have lost carry on bags.
Mhm.
It's going to happen clearly less often. Um, and when you pack your items so that, you don't have mom's suitcase, dad's suitcase, even though that's easier, you know, um, spread out items because, when we did go to Portugal, we did only lose 2 of our 4 bags. And so we all had stuff. You know, AirTags are huge. I referenced, the situation where I had the AirTag. And this, I've twice lost AirTags because they've been on the outside of the bag. So there's pros and cons to both because you're going to get better coverage if it's outside the bag, but they have fallen off. So one went in an Uber, and one we left in Costa Rica. So yeah, put them inside your bag. There is a product you can get on Amazon. It's like almost like a safety pin with an AirTag holder. So, you can pin it somewhere so it's not like floating in your bag. Pin it inside. Um, Tags with your information. I don't typically recommend putting your home address on a tag that's open because you don't want everybody to know, you're about to leave your house unattended. So I just have my cell phone number and my name. If it's one of those tags that's, closed, that's a little bit better, but I wouldn't maybe put like an office address if you have one. But they're going to ask for your address of where the bag's going to be delivered if it is lost.
Yeah.
Um, and then this one is kind of something we learned in Portugal, which is take photos of your bags before you go. So they will, especially if it's a foreign country where it might be harder with the language barrier to describe the bag.
Yeah.
You can say, and we were lucky because we had the carry-ons that matched. We didn't take a photo, but we had the carry-ons that matched the bigger bag. So I just said like literally the big one of that and the big one of that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the best you can describe it, and the best way you can describe it is clearly to show a photo. So,
I think the photo is a great idea. And I actually learned that tip. And I hate to reference it, RIP Disney's Magical Express, because we booked a last minute trip. We booked Disney's Magical Express. We didn't have the tags before we left home. So when we got there, they told us to just go to the counter, describe the bags, and they would be able to find them. Well, I mean, if you're like most people, your bag probably looks like a lot of other bags. So to just go and say, oh, it's a black bag or it's a blue bag or, whatever. And they told me, the next time, just take a picture of it and show it to us, because that will definitely show, it is a black bag, but it's got like a scuff of white paint on it, or you've got a neon orange tag on it that you forgot to mention, but now they can see it in the picture. So I love that idea.
yeah. You had mentioned this, but if it's hard for you to buy clothes like in a gift shop, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm 4'11", right? So I can't just go buy pants like off the rack, right? I get things shortened. You might want to have like an extra outfit or two in your carry-on, um, specifically of like, for me, it would be pants, right? Like it's stuff that you would have a harder time getting. I think in general, bottoms are tougher to get anyway, because, you can get a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. Um, so those are the things you kind of want to put in your carry-on or your personal item.
Yeah, for sure. If you are a fluffy person, which I am, you're not going to necessarily find all of the sizes that you need. You're not going to find, it doesn't matter what size you are. You're probably not going to find a bra or underwear in places, but definitely, and some of the countries that you're traveling, like I have a daughter that lives in Japan, and flying over to Japan, they do not have the same clothing size that we have here. So I always, always, always have in my carry-on bag a full extra outfit, so that if I get somewhere and my luggage is gone, at least I know I can wash something and wear, like I will have a full outfit that I can wash and wear, and at least get me through the first couple of days.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things, and I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that I recommend, um, if you're like a frequent traveler, um, items that are made of merino wool, and
Mm,
I had a dress made of merino wool, um, are great for travel because they don't have to be washed as frequently, but when they are washed, they dry very quickly, and they also don't wrinkle as much, and they can fold up really tiny. So those are great. Like if you can get a couple of staples made of merino wool, those are great options to kind of toss in your carry-on.
yeah. And you can do a Google search for those kinds of things, or if you have a favorite store that you like to shop in, a lot of shops now have like the travel line of clothes, and they are things that are more wrinkle resistant and they dry quicker. So you'll be able to find stuff that if your luggage does get lost and you need to just hand wash something in the sink, before you go to bed, you have a decent shot of it being ready to wear the next day.
Right. And you can even buy, like, you don't have to bring laundry detergent, but there's like these little packets you can buy that have laundry detergent in them,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I always throw in my bag.
Yeah. So if you have, you've got this carry-on bag, and, you've had the situation where it happened to you that they've had to take it. So what do you do? Like, what do you put in your personal item, like your handbag or your backpack, that is going to go on the plane with you? You're going to have it. What do you put in there that you absolutely positively cannot lose?
Medication, 100%.
Yeah.
My kids have retainers. So retainers, you don't want to lose those. They're really expensive, hard to get back. Um,
Yeah.
any of travel documents you need. So any confirmations you've printed out, any, your passport clearly, if you're going on a cruise, you might have printed out something. You're going to want to put, like, I like to put my chargers in there just because, I don't want to be like having to get up and get them. Like, it's easier if it's under the seat. Anything you need for the flight, definitely. Um, and then, if you're, like, I always dress in layers on a plane, right? So if I'm got a little sweater or something, I'll throw that in there. Um, Ultimately, because the personal item is the item that goes under the seat in front of you, you're going to have that item with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for myself, when I lost my bags going out to Las Vegas, I literally went from work in New Jersey in February. It was snowy. It was miserable. We flew out to Vegas, and I'm still in my work clothes, which at the time was like a lined pair of jeans and basically the Aran fisherman sweater, and a big heavy Irish sweater. And we got out to Vegas, and it was roasting hot, and I had absolutely nothing. I did not dress in layers, which would have definitely been to my benefit. But I know now, when I'm packing that personal item, and I usually use my bento bag as my personal item because it holds my documents, it holds my credit cards. Like, I can put a lot of stuff in there, but I always make sure that if I'm going like from New Jersey to Florida or somewhere where the weather is going to be drastically different, that my extra outfit is geared towards that climate, so that I do not ever have to walk through the streets of Las Vegas in a wool sweater and it's 120 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, although, a handbag is a personal item, I recommend that you go with something larger because you're going to need the space.
Yeah.
Unless you have like a big tote.
Yeah. And I throw a small crossbody in the bento bag. So I have, a handbag when I get to where I'm going. And the
Exactly.
bento bag just makes more sense. But what do you do? So your luggage is lost. You're now at the other end of the airport. How do you make a claim? What do you need? What do you do?
So if you're at the airport, you're going to need to go to the luggage claim office, which is typically not a fun place to be. um,
Yeah.
Especially, if more than one person's luggage is missing, it's usually a long line. This is where AirTags have come in really handy because, like, when I mentioned that we lost our luggage in Porto, I knew by looking at my AirTags that they were still in Paris, and so I didn't have to wait for that carousel to stop.
Yeah.
So I was in the very front of that line that grew very long. Um, So that definitely helps. You are, depending on if you put the tags on your bag yourself, you're going to want to just put those claim tags, the little sticker on the back of your boarding passes. If you, hand them off, you'll get a claim tag that you'll put on the boarding pass. Keep those. I know a lot of people leave their boarding pass on the plane. Keep it, because that will help you immensely. And then, you right now, I think there's an update with Apple where you can actually share your AirTag location with an airport employee.
Oh, that's awesome.
Giving the AirTag location is actually, and I've asked claim people because I've clearly talked to a lot of them. I, definitely recommend, having that information available for them if you have it.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that there have been instances where the claim office has been closed.
No.
So the flight gets very delayed. Don't try not to leave the airport without talking to someone.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's great info.
So here's what happened, right? So my daughter's flight was, long story short, she got diverted to a different airport about an hour away. And so I had ordered a car service for them to pick her up at that airport and bring her back to college. Her bag was lost. She kept saying, I know my bag's lost because I know it's on that plane that's sitting there. And they were like, nope, you can't make the claim till you get to your destination. You can't make the claim till you get to your destination. Well, she finally got to her destination and the baggage claim office was empty. Thankfully, this car service I rented for her, which I found on the internet because this wasn't an airport we go to. That chauffeur actually went upstairs to the airline counter and said, somebody needs to take this kid's claim.
Oh, that's so good.
And helped her out. And so they did. But he said, you don't want to leave because, this is the person you need to talk to. When it's a phone, it becomes a little more challenging because maybe like the reservationist can't take that claim. So really try not to leave the airport until you've talked to someone.
That's great.
And, again, any information you can provide, photos of the bag, what it looks like, if it has like a unique tag on it, AirTag information, anything that's going to help them get your bag. And then find out from them, do you need to come back to the airport? I've needed to go back to the airport. Typically that's quicker, right? They usually contract with a third party. But that takes time. So, but don't leave the airport without knowing, what the plan is, essentially.
Yeah. How does this work on a cruise? If you get on your cruise ship and your cruise bags go missing, like I know how it worked for us. We panicked. I panicked. But we were able to mention it to our room steward who I think intervened. But what usually happens with cruise bags?
So, with your cruise bag, first of all, you have to keep in mind it can be all day before you get your bags. And so, we recommend with cruise bags, you're going to carry like a day bag on. And in that bag, you're going to have, all the things that I just mentioned in a personal item. But yeah, like a dress for dinner, if that's what you're going to do. If your kids are the type that are going to just want to jump in that pool the minute you get on board, either bathing suits, underclothes with like underwear packed in a bag or in the bag themselves. Sunscreen is huge because, you're going to want to take advantage of the nice weather, assuming you're in nice weather. But what you want to do is have, don't rely just on those cruise tags, right? You're going to want to have ID on your bag. Something that if the cruise tag does fall off, there is something else. And photos, I think, extremely helpful with cruise bags because you can literally show your room steward. That's going to be your point of contact, I think, until they officially say we've delivered all the bags.
Yeah, I think so. For me, with cruise bags, if it's not there by dinner time, I think I don't panic until it's not there by dinner time. And maybe by the time I'm done dinner, the ship is already setting sail. So it might be a little too late to mention it by then. But the other thing and I don't know why, because I've done a ton of cruises, but I always get to the cruise terminal and it's almost like a surprise to me that I'm handing my bags to somebody else. I know that my bigger bags are going, but the smaller items that I might have carried onto the plane with me, it doesn't occur to me until I'm standing there and it's like, oh no, I don't want to carry this on the ship and then have to carry it until 2 or 3 o'clock when I can get into my room. I want to give them this bag also. So like I am just catching up to speed here and I'm making sure even my carry-on bags are all labeled with, some kind of identification. The one bag that I took on MSC with us that did get lost until after dinner, thank goodness they found it, that the tag had fallen off. It wasn't until that morning that I filled in the tag on the back of the suitcase because I never needed it. All my bags have luggage tags on it. This one did not for some reason, but it still had the original label on the back of the suitcase where I could scribble my, information and tuck it back in. But yeah, make sure all of your identifying information is on even your smallest bag because you could get to the port and decide, you know what, I don't need to carry this backpack. I'm going to give it to them. So just make sure everything is covered. But let's talk insurance because now we're going to assume your bags are gone. You've lost it. What do? What is the benefit of having insurance in this situation?
Yes. So with, your insurance is going to vary. You might have some coverage through your credit card. You may have some coverage through your travel insurance. The airline does have some obligation to provide some coverage. With me, I have this service through American Express where anytime I purchase an airline ticket, it automatically charges me for the travel insurance or the luggage insurance. So that's what I went through when we got our bags lost in Portugal. And as thoughtful as we were around making sure that we had everything we needed in those bags, there was a few things that we didn't have. It wasn't crazy expensive, but, and this is so embarrassing, but like our toothbrushes, hairbrushes, deodorant, um, pajamas for like one person, uh, a shirt for one person. So we bought those things in Porto. You're gonna want to prove that your luggage was stolen. You're gonna want to keep any documentation that the airline gives you. Which, like I said, ours was in Portuguese, but still, um, you are going to want to give any proof of the flight, the purchase of the flight, and then any receipts of anything you've purchased. So the reason why I mention this specifically is because typically when you lose your luggage at the beginning of your trip, right? So you don't want to kind of like lose those receipts in with other stuff. So like I found like a pocket of our bag that, normally would hold a laptop that I hadn't brought, that I kind of was throwing those receipts in just to have them like separated out. But yeah, you're going to want to make the claim when you get home. And sometimes there's not going to typically be like a per diem, like, oh, you get $50 a day. It's just going to be what you need. It's not going to be like a new iPad, right? Like that's going to be like a hairbrush or,
Yeah.
pajamas or a sweater or something like that. So, it's always good to kind of know what you're getting, what you've got before you go, right? And that's why I like that Amex system of that's something you subscribe to, but where I get charged when I book the ticket so that I know I always have it.
Yeah. It's also not a bad idea because you cannot lose your luggage at the airport and have it not turn up and then claim that you have your $50,000 Hermes bag in there.
Right.
You might want to have a couple of pictures of what you've packed. And it's not just because you're thinking that your stuff is going to get lost. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it when you're repacking your bag to make sure that you have all your stuff. But if you're going to put your expensive stuff in your suitcase and there's a chance that it's going to get lost, you're going to have to prove to your insurance company that that stuff was in there, that you did take the chance and, check your $800 shoes or your laptop or stuff like that. Not that the insurance company is going to question and, nickel and dime you on everything. But if you're going to pack some really pricey stuff in there and not want to see some YouTuber down the road with their, I bought unclaimed luggage, you're going to have some proof that you've got that stuff in there.
Yeah. So that brings up a really good point because I think anyone traveling should take a look at that unclaimed baggage or unclaimed luggage website and see it is like eye-opening, right? Like
it is.
So,
it's crazy.
So yeah, when you realize stuff that just didn't make it back, we've got good stories. All of us, we've both been without our luggage, but we've had it come back. The other good thing about a photo, I would say, is sometimes you think like, now what did I put in that bag? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what was in there?
Yeah.
Because, you're packing and you're going on vacation and you're throwing things in various bags, and to sit back and be like, okay, those were, my pajamas, that was my bathing suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, good idea overall.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the things that they're going to give you. What do you absolutely want to make sure that you keep, that you put it in your wallet or something that you're not going to lose?
So you're going to want to keep your boarding pass with the luggage tags until you claimed your luggage. So, once you've got your luggage in your hand, you don't need the boarding pass anymore. But if your luggage is lost.
I actually love that tip. I know I'm interrupting. I absolutely love that tip because I don't think I've ever made it from the plane to baggage claim with my boarding pass. It's been tossed.
Yeah. Especially, those tags are a little harder to keep track of if you're using like a mobile boarding pass. They hand you that thing, you stick it in a pocket, you grab a coffee, it gets thrown out with the coffee, just keep it. It's typically not a huge piece, it's like a half or quarter piece of paper. Quarter of a boarding pass. So keep that. If your bags are lost, keep it the whole time. Any documentation the airline gives you about what specifically, is lost and proving that it was lost. And then, receipts for everything you've bought. And what we did was we just because, the receipts were not in English, we wrote at the bottom of every receipt, this was the toothbrushes. This was,
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you get there, your bags are not lost, but they're really damaged. Do you have any options then?
Yeah. So there are rules, like I had referenced at the beginning of this topic about, government guidelines about what has to be provided for you. Normal wear and tear is not covered. Sometimes the handle won't go up, or, a wheel is misaligned. Let's say, and I've seen this happen, and you always go, oh no, right? The bag that's burst open.
Yeah.
It goes on the belt and people's right. So, I know when I was in that really long line in Portugal, they were giving people bags. They literally had bags that they were handing people. They weren't, this wasn't your away bag or your base bag, right? This was kind of a general black bag. But they did have those. They also had a catalog of bags that you could get sent to you, maybe if you were going home. So definitely inquire, especially if you're at your destination and you're not home. Now you need a bag for the way home, right? So there are things that that the airlines are required to give you, but see if they have anything there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have been with friends who took kind of a wonky bag on a trip with us. And by the time we retrieved it at baggage claim, the wonkiness had now become unusableness. And it does sometimes require, an Uber to whatever store you can go to get luggage. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind also.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, if your bag is showing signs, like if you've ever seen the way luggage is handled, right? If it's already looking rough, um,
Yeah.
then it's time. Even
Yeah.
if you think it
Don't
can make
wait
it
for
one
your
more
own.
trip, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have had some questions about the MSC World America trip we were on. So the first question was, does MSC have any shorter cruises? So we mentioned the World America does 7 days. Um, what are your options if you want to do a shorter cruise?
So there are, at least right now, there are at least a couple of options that you can do. The MSC Seaside has 3 and 4 night cruises, and the Seashore tends to do 3 and 4 night cruises. You might find a couple of 5 night cruises also out of Miami or Port Canaveral. So you will find shorter cruises. Generally though, like the ones out of the Northeast on the Maravilla, they tend to be longer cruises, 7 to even maybe 11 nights. So, as they get more ships over here, they'll probably have more offerings, but you can at least find Seaside and Seashore with shorter cruises.
Great, those are good options. Then someone asked us if the MSC World America is going to be doing the Med at any point.
For the foreseeable future, no. I mean, we can't certainly speak to itineraries that come up down the road, but right now the MSC World Europa, which is a sister ship to World America, is covering the Mediterranean and Europe. So World America, again, built for the American cruiser, the American market, is going to stay here for at least the foreseeable future.
And then someone had asked us if the bathrooms in the stateroom are super tiny.
I didn't really think they were. I know I've been on cruise ships where I've had larger bathrooms, but I didn't find them to be that small. Did you? And you're a tinier person. Did you find any issues with them?
I mean, it is a one bathroom, unlike Disney, where you've got the split bathroom. But no, I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the size of a hotel bathroom. But I didn't find it to be particularly small.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very comfortable. I didn't have any problems at all.
Yeah.
So there are a couple items in travel news this week, and Wi-Fi is a big one. You want to stay in communication when you're traveling. So what is the news from American Airlines?
So American Airlines is going to be adding free Wi-Fi. So right now they do have Wi-Fi on their planes, most of their planes, and you do have to pay for it. Um, Now, this is an interesting trend because I typically fly JetBlue, and they've always had complimentary Wi-Fi. Um, but I was on American when we went down to Miami, and I like American too. I was really disappointed when that partnership ended because I kind of liked earning points on both. But American doesn't have like the TVs that JetBlue has, right? So that um, they don't have like the same entertainment options. Um, I I like having Wi-Fi on a plane. I don't necessarily need it to read the latest entertainment news or whatever, but I do like it to just stay in touch. Um, so I know you don't fly JetBlue because of where you live, not having many options, but would you typically pay for Wi-Fi? Like, is this a perk that you're going to take advantage of?
I will absolutely use free Wi-Fi. I don't generally pay for Wi-Fi. I've flown most recently on Frontier, which doesn't offer any Wi-Fi. You cannot get Wi-Fi service on
Right.
Frontier. But there have been instances, especially if you're on a flight that's delayed and you're meeting somebody, like you want to have Wi-Fi. You want to be able to text them a message or at
Right.
least get some information to them that says, I'll meet you later or, whatever. So I'm always grateful to see Wi-Fi because even if I have to pay for it, if I need it, I know that it's there.
Yeah. And then the other news was, and this came out with AT&T, but we know that, cellular carriers tend to kind of um, follow each other to kind of keep the offering similar.
Yeah.
So in the past, the airlines have had some sort of cruise coverage, but it's been confusing. And so this is, and we love day pass, right? We've had the international day pass where you pay a fee and you can use your phone in a foreign country. You pay daily. You can use it like you're in the US. But this is going to be day pass for cruise ships. So it's going to be $20, which is more than the international day pass, but not unreasonable.
It's really not. And so cruise line internet and Wi-Fi, it tends to go across the board. Sometimes you can get a package where it's bundled in and you don't really realize how much you're paying per day. Other cruises, like I have an upcoming cruise in a couple of weeks to Bermuda, it's about $35 a day for me to buy the cruise ship internet package. Now, I don't know how great this package is going to be with AT&T.
We don't know what the coverage is going to be like.
I really don't, but I know that I have been on a cruise ship where I've gotten the AT&T message that says you're in international waters and we're going to start like that. Cha-ching. That's basically what the message is. Like you just have your credit card handy because you're going to be paying us a ton of money. So to have the option to keep my day pass going, or if I'm on a sea day to have the day pass, because maybe you don't want to do the cruise line internet or Wi-Fi or whatever, and then you need it. This is definitely a more reasonable option than a lot of the options I've seen available on cruise ships. So I'm excited to see what the coverage is like, what the offerings are, if I can get it, if I'm, who knows, Timbuktu, whatever. I'm really excited to see that they're offering something that I can now use on a cruise.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of things here. One is that international waters tend to be a lot closer than you think.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And two, with this package, I do believe the Wi-Fi or the data part of it does tap out at a certain number. So the day pass is, the day pass basically mirrors whatever coverage you currently have. So if you have unlimited data, you're going to have unlimited data on the day pass. I think it does tap out with the cruise ships, but
it does. And, I would hate to speculate as to how far into your sea day that data will take you. But you want to check with your carrier if they're going to be offering something like this, what your, maximum is before, other fees start to kick in.
Right. And just a little tip that I'm going to say based upon personal knowledge is that you will be surprised at what your cell phone downloads in the background, right? So this is going to be data, not Wi-Fi. So you just want to limit what your cell phone is going to back up over cellular. You're not going to want to back up your photos to the cloud. Clearly you do want to do that at some point, but you don't want to do it while you're on a data package over data because you're going to be taking a lot of photos. You're on vacation and, if your cell phone backs up to the cloud, that might be something you want to stop. So, you may not want to update apps via the data. So these are just things that you're going to want to kind of go into your phone and check. Make sure you're not using your data for anything beyond what you are physically typing into your phone. And then what you also want to do is make sure that once you're back home that you know what you changed because you are going to eventually want to do those things. So just a little tip there.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Wander and Chat. As always, we thank you and we ask that you please leave us a review and subscribe on whatever channel you are watching or listening to this podcast. We also have a Facebook group. I know we've referenced it before. The group is great for asking questions, discussion topics. So definitely join our Wander and Chat Facebook group. And please be sure to join us next time. We are going to talk all about the private islands that are offered by the cruise lines. This is such a big topic because these are such a differentiating factor between the cruise lines. So we are going to talk all about the ones that we have visited and know about. So please join us. Thank you so much.